Good evening. Welcome to the March Committee of the Whole meeting. This time we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, turn it over to Vice President Gavlet.
Good evening and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting. I am now going to turn it over to Superintendent Dr. LaRocca.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. This is the Committee of the Whole work session for next week's meeting on March 25th. I encourage everybody to either tune in or come to the meeting next week when we will have the full budget presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget tonight, I expect, but the full presentation and the proposed budget will be at the March 25th meeting at 8 p.m. Okay, for tonight, does the board have any questions about the Education Committee consent agenda? The deadline for teachers to put in their retirement letters was March 15th, and we do have resignations for the purpose of retirement and from several teachers, and also from Angela Lucente, who's been the secretary of Deaver for 45 years.
Wow.
So,
Wow, 45 years.
yeah.
Any questions from the board? No questions from the board, Dr. LaRocca?
Okay, business committee includes the 5 propositions. The first proposition is for the 2025-2026 budget. The second proposition is to expend funds from the capital reserve. And then propositions 3, 4, and 5 relate to the central high school district's budget, their budget, and 2 other propositions. So when you see the agenda, the official agenda posted, you will, the public will see all of those propositions. And the annual risk assessment plan, which the board got last week from the internal auditors.
Consent, Treasurer. Any questions from the board? No questions from the board, Dr. LaRocca?
Any questions on the business committee consent?
Questions from the board on consent business? No questions from the board, Dr. LaRocca?
Okay, policy committee, we will have an update for the board, and we'll have policies for second reading that are listed.
And adoption.
Yes, second reading and adoption. Any questions on the committee of the whole consent items? We will have next year's board meeting dates listed.
Any questions from the board on committee of the whole consent? No questions from the board, Dr. LaRocca?
Okay. If the board would allow me, I would like to highlight a few things following up from last month's Committee of the Whole meeting. At last month's February Committee of the Whole meeting, we discussed class sizes in relation to the budget. If you're watching at home, I would encourage you to go to the district website, to the live stream link, and you can revisit that information. Tonight, I would like to update a little bit further on where we're at with last year's capital projects. So remember that when we have the budget in next week, we will propose projects for the following year. And I always like to remind people that many of those projects require state approval to move forward with, and the state is on a Mr. Antoine, I felt like a 30,
Several months,
a several month process to get approval, so,
up to about 6 months.
right. So, and then we also have to work around, you know, when we can do work, especially if it's in the building, we can't do that work obviously when students are in session and learning. So in last year's budget, we included funds for the Willow General Purpose Room roof replacement, the Wheeler Gym roof replacement, a renovation to the Howell Road Library, and a renovation and update to the Deaver Kindergarten wing. So some of you may have noticed that the board passed a resolution prior to declare the Willow roof able to be done under emergency, and that allows us to move the project a little bit faster on the state approval. And I've gotten some questions about, you know, why didn't we do that for the Wheeler Gym roof, which has been, you know, had been a problem for just as long. And the difference is really in the assessment of the problem in the roofs. So our district architect will assess along with our facilities director, and the Willow GP leak is a much more significant leak than the Wheeler leak. That's just from a, you know, construction standpoint. I know in terms of making sure that the kids and the teachers have a good place to be. We all want these things done very quickly. But I just want to reassure everyone that both of those roofs and the leaks will be fixed, and we will be moving forward with them once we have the approval, and again, as soon as the schedule allows. And the Howell and the Deaver projects, we are waiting for the approval from the state, and we would not start those projects until the summer, because they're, you know, renovations that we're not gonna close those areas while school is in session. And again, tune in for the budget presentation on the 25th to learn more about the capital projects. So last month we talked about class sizes. This month I wanted to share some enrollment information. And I hear a lot about, you know, increasing enrollment and we have more students. And that often comes from, you know, when your child is in class and the class has a new student, the number of students in the class goes up. But what we know based on our assessment of enrollment on a monthly basis is that while kids do enter the district, kids also do leave the district. That's called migration. That's just the technical term that they use when you're looking at enrollment, and students come and students go. And we recently had a demographic study done, an enrollment study done for comprehensive planning purposes. This literally just came out, and I'll be sending that home to the board this week. But I pulled a couple of the slides from the report, and you can see that from 2010 to 2020 that we had an 11.8% reduction in enrollment growth. And we've seen that in the numbers. You can see that the district had 2,254 students in the district in the year 2000, and in 2020 we had 1,872. Now that 1,872 number may seem a little bit low. Remember that in 2023, I believe, we added pre-K, and we currently have 152 students enrolled there. So that has the number of, we've buffered some of that enrollment loss by bringing in the pre-K student enrollment numbers. But overall, enrollment has been steadily declining in the district.
Question.
Yeah.
This is a 2020 number. Did they provide 2021?
Yeah, there's many more.
Yeah, because I'm kind of interested more in that 2021 number.
So we're gonna
Only
see.
because COVID, you know, and
Yeah. So
not too
we're-
many kids were coming into the schools. Some wanted to stay out.
But we
or-
still had the same enrollment because we had them, some students had a choice whether to come to school or to learn remotely.
Oh, so it was this is the enrollment, not who actually attended?
Correct.
Okay.
We definitely did have some students transition to home instruction, but it was not a significant number that year. So, and then these are just some of the comments that are in there. We're looking at kindergarten classes of about 225 to 230. The report does show that in the years 2026 and 2027, there may be a slight bump up from what we currently have. And you can see in the second arrow bullet, the incoming kindergarten class has been smaller than the graduating 12th grade class. Of course, we don't graduate the 12th graders, but they are still over at the high school district. And that this trend is expected to continue with an anticipated loss of another 45 to 84 students in the next 10 years. And you can see in the top bullet that overall by the year 2034, we're projected to lose approximately 92 students. So we're kind of, for the most part, at the peak of enrollment. And this is the projections moving forward, and this is really important for planning purposes. So all of the buildings show K to 6, but of course you do have the pre-K enrollment. Remember, these are
At the light,
projected.
turn right onto Corona Avenue, then turn right onto Lippman Road.
You
Thank
lost?
Thank you, Siri.
Going somewhere?
That just reminded me that my phones are not off, so my favorite as well, because I forgot to turn them off. But I would like, this one, I think if we look at Deaver, the star shows where the projection is, has the potential to be at peak enrollment. And interestingly, at Deaver, we have the potential for a slight uptick in enrollment. And that's something that we really would not have known without this enrollment study. So that's something that I'm definitely gonna be taking a closer look at. But the trends in the other schools are what we have been seeing over the years, which is declining enrollment in the district. And that's mostly due to birth rates. So you can see that peak enrollment may be at Howell in the year 2026. Next year is slated to be the peak enrollment at Wheeler, 611. We currently have 612 students in the building. I know it says 609, but there are currently 612 students that are at Wheeler right now, according to the records that they send to me every month. But you can see that Wheeler will continue to lose enrollment. And really that number, 609, 610, that's been a pretty steady number at Wheeler, at least for the past 10 years that I've been looking at the enrollment numbers. I think there's a perception that Wheeler keeps growing. I think Wheeler has a lot of kids, but none of the data we have shows that it's growing. Willow Road is very steady. You can see most of the numbers for Willow Road are almost the same across the whole 10-year period. And then if you look in that last column, by 2034, that's that decline in enrollment that they're projecting to be about 40 to 90 students. So we'll be taking a more in-depth look at this over time, but I thought, with the budget coming up, this would be, good to share.
Question, in Willow, does that include the special needs classes?
It does. These are the actual number of students in each of the buildings. And we're gonna move on. So to follow up from last month I showed you the current class sizes and number of sections in the district. This is what we've used for projections for the budget. For next year, kindergarten, I just slotted in 22 students. We can have up to 26 students in the grade level. We have not had those types of numbers, but I just put 22 in as placeholders so that people could see that we are anticipating 2 sections for Deaver, 3 sections for Howell, 3 sections for Wheeler and 2 sections for Willow. We're continuing to anticipate that we would have the 9 pre-kindergarten classes. I think that's, gonna be a pretty safe bet for the, for the future, based on those enrollment projections that we have. You can see, I have the small, where you see the SC, that's the small class, which Trustee Vicente was just mentioning. There are 6 small classes at Deaver, and 19 regular general education sections, so that is 25 class sections at Deaver for next year. That is the same as what they have this year. At Howell Road, we have 23 class sections, the 9 pre-Ks. We are adding 1 small class at Howell Road next year, so that's very exciting. Those students will be able to go to their home school. That will be wonderful for those students and their parents. So they're adding a section at Howell. At Wheeler, we are maintaining the 28 sections that we have, and we have eliminated some of the larger classes that we had this year in the upper grades. We've actually had 2 years of large class sizes in 4th and 5th grade, but we were able, keeping the 28 sections, to have more even class size numbers at Wheeler. And then Willow Road, we have the small 6 small classes there. Willow is projected to lose a section. Willow, I've mentioned this before in prior years' budget presentations. Willow for many years had 2 classes on a grade level. After the pandemic, there was an increase in enrollment at Willow Road. I think there was a lot of turnover in the buying and selling of houses at Willow after the pandemic. And so you had grade levels of, pushing over the threshold of the class size guidelines. And so that's why you see a little bit of lower class sizes there. When we do the budget presentation next week, and we compare that to 2018 data, when they had 2 sections, Willow had the highest class sizes in the district. So I think overall, these, I know, based on the data, that these are the lowest class sizes, based on the averages across the buildings and the district that we've ever had in terms of projections for next year. And I'd also just like to remind everyone that the class size itself is only one thing that we look at. We have to see if we have the physical space to put all these classes. So we're really, with these lower class sizes, utilizing almost all of the available large regular sized classrooms in all 4 buildings. We have special education teachers at every single grade level, which would further reduce the student to teacher ratio in many of these class sizes that you see here. Some grade levels even have two of the classes with a special education teacher. We also have ENL teachers who push in for ENL supports. And then generally, especially at K1 and 2, we have reading teachers that are assigned to these grade levels to provide additional support services directly into the classroom. So the class size number is just one piece of the information. But I think I'm pretty pleased with the class sizes that we're projecting for next year. Of course, if we get close to the class size guidelines, we review the data throughout the summer, and if we need to add another section, we will do that as we have in the past. We will continue to review that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's good to hear that it'll be reviewed over the summer and if the enrollment changes. But what if it changes in like November or December? What options do you have? Because you're not going to split up sections that have been established for a few months already. So would you add an aid or?
We can add an aid. I mean, this year when we had the high class sizes at Wheeler, we have had an aid in those classrooms. We also can look at the reading teacher schedules. We have the math support teachers, like at Wheeler, we have 5 reading teachers and 3 math teachers. So we can look at their schedules and provide additional periods of support there. Sometimes with the special education schedule, we may be able to even provide another teacher. When we had some of the really high class sizes at Wheeler, at Willow, I would say like 4 years ago, we have added a reading teacher, we hired a part-time reading teacher, we've hired a part-time special education teacher. So in the past, when that happens, we generally look to see what other supports are available to support those classes. I don't think we would split a class and,
Yeah.
at that point, people would get very upset to, have to change their teacher at that point. Last year, I think before we started school, I think we added 3 sections based on the kindergarten enrollment, and one, I think second grade at Howell, was right on the edge, and we added a section there. So we've done that, and, if you've been a parent in the district for a long time, you know that we used to put the teacher's name on the report card at the end of the year. We changed that 2 years ago because we are often looking at enrollment and making changes, and so we don't want to disappoint people, so we have left the teacher's name off the report cards just for that purpose of being able to make those changes before school starts. So ideally, we would make that decision before school starts.
With the budget here, anything changes you can see that are gonna kind of push in the math and reading outcomes or things from that? I know that was specifically talked about.
I think that the budget has a very strong investment in support with the reading teachers and the math teachers. Dr. Radice and I have been working with the principals on reviewing our state test data because the scores have definitely been declining. So I think that we need to continue that investment in those support services to ensure that students are, that we can have them make a little bit more progress. Also, Dr. Radice recently had an assessment meeting with some key staff members to look at what our other district assessments are to make changes there. But I think, the investment in the number of sections, so even though we actually have less students, we have not reduced the number of sections in the buildings, we've even added sections. So the more we can continue to send the class size, to get the class sizes lower, that's gonna help as well. And that's a significant financial investment in the budget. Remember, about 75% of the budget is made up of, goes directly to the staff, the salaries and benefits of the teachers and the staff members who support the kids directly. So that's where the board is investing their funds in kids directly.
Thank you.
So I know we're talking a lot about how we're, maintaining the class sizes, but I'm wondering if there are any other things, because that seems to be something that comes up with the community a lot. Are there other things that the community are prioritizing that we have included in the budget too?
Absolutely. So I think we've heard a lot. This is certainly something that we hear a lot about, and so we've been sharing, making sure we're sharing this information. But I think we've heard the community asking us to consider an assistant principal for our district. We've heard the community speaking about facilities improvements, particularly field at Wheeler, playgrounds across the district, just general maintenance and cleanliness of the buildings. I think the district, the community members, I'm trying to think what else. Security, maintaining our security that we have. So I think the community is going to see a lot of those things, the vast majority of those things in next week's budget presentation.
Any questions?
there some things in the budget that are not there, like that we couldn't afford to put in there?
So while I think the community is gonna be happy with those, those items that I just mentioned, one of the things that we weren't able to include in the budget is definitely a tighter budget, and we're gonna go over lots of numbers next week. But we were not able to, we're not gonna be able to continue the summer academic program. We will still have summer recreation. I don't want anybody to panic. We will still have summer recreation, and I think we raised the price. We had to raise the price a tiny little bit, maybe $25. So it's still a bargain, but there is a slight increase in summer rec. We actually operate that program at a deficit, but the expanded summer AAS program was fully funded through the COVID fund grants. And we're just not, in order to make those other things that the community was asking for happening, this is something that only serves a very small portion of our school community, and those students will continue to get services, of course, during the school year. But that was one compromise that we had to make in the budget, was that there will be no summer academic support program. There will still be a summer ENL program, there will still be the summer special ed extended school year program, there will still be summer recreation. But other than that, I would have to check my notes, but I think pretty much, that's the main thing in the budget that people will notice, I think, between what we offered last year and what we can offer this year.
Whoever's one.
Dave.
I think that, we need to talk about the tax levy being a little higher. Because if history repeats itself, that is something that the community is never happy with. And it gets presented in a way that, people who don't have children here, it's gonna hurt their pockets. So, can you elaborate on that?
So the tax, there's two terms that we will discuss. One of them is the tax cap levy limit. The limit is the largest amount that any district can go up to. And the limit is not necessarily 2%. So we always kind of, talk about that. The 2% tax cap is not a 2% tax cap. And that calculation varies. Every district has their own calculation that they have to do. It's reported to the Office of the State Comptroller. So every single district in New York State has reported what their tax cap levy limit is. This year, our tax levy limit is 2.12%. And it's from a dollar perspective, it's over $800,000, between $800,000 and $900,000. In a, $69 million budget. So the tax levy is relatively small, percent of the budget. In this budget, we are going to be asking for that full amount. And that has to do with the amount of state aid we got this year. So we had been receiving a very large amount of state aid. We did receive a very nice amount of state aid this year, but it was significantly lower than the past 3 years. So the lack of state aid, even though we got a lot of state aid, makes it necessary for us to go to that limit. Now, the difference between 2% and 2.12% is $46,000. So the actual numbers, again, are relatively small numbers. But we're gonna go over that history in detail in the budget presentation. We are gonna go over all of those details about what makes up the increase in the budget, both on the state aid side and the revenue side.
I think we need to explain that to the community in that detail, because we understand it. Well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
We understand it because we deal with this
Right.
every year.
Yep.
So we understand that limit and then tax, the 2%, so people need to understand that limit. So any way we could explain that further.
We absolutely will. We're absolutely gonna provide that information next week. It's still very, I think you'll still find the budget, the community will find the budget to, once again, maintain programs, add what we can add, get the things done that, district residents are asking for, and be fiscally responsible at the same time. I think it's another very solid budget that, has benefits to kids, but also remains responsive to the community. I hope you'll find, I hope the community will find that to be true.
I have a question. The garbage pickup district-wide,
Yes.
can you explain that a little bit? Because if I'm a parent and I'm looking at that, that doesn't seem like to some people might seem like it's not that important compared to other things that we wanna do. So can you explain that a little
Sure.
bit?
So one of the things that we added in this budget that we're gonna be proposing next week is carding for all 4 of the buildings. So interestingly, the Wheeler Avenue School being in the village has access to carding from the village. And that gets picked up on a daily basis. The other 3 buildings have, you may or may not have seen them, but they have a cement cinder block shed, garbage shed, and our custodians, make bags of garbage and then they get put in there and get picked up twice a week. So it's not the best system, it's inexpensive, but there's a lot of garbage around a lot. And one of the things that we've definitely heard from the community is about, wanting to make sure that this is not an exciting topic, but that we do not have pest problems in the district. And so one of the things that we can do to mitigate any pest issues in the district would be to have the garbage in a dumpster and being picked up on a more regular basis. And that comes at a cost, it's a small cost. So we added $34,000 to the budget to implement that for next year. I think that's pretty standard thing, and likely something that, we should have invested in before this year.
Dr. Larkin is presenting the budget next week.
Yeah.
More further details. Any other inquiries? Dr. Larkin, no other inquiries, does that conclude?
I think we're good. I hope everybody is able to tune in next week or watch it, watch the recording the next day if you can't make it at that time. March 25th, 8 p.m.
Okay, that concludes the committee of the whole meeting. I'll take a motion to go into exec session.
Make a motion to go into executive session with the assistant superintendent, our attorney, and our superintendent for legal matters and personnel.
Second on the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now into exec session. Thank you.